Hi everyone, you're listening to 312, the HRP Podcast. As always, 312 is divided into two sections, Work Hard and Play Hard. During this episode's Work Hard segment, you may hear us sounding a bit muffled. That's because we had a chance to record in person, and in order to stay in compliance with our office's safety guidelines, we wore masks during the recording. We apologize for any inconvenience, but as always, safety first. For this episode of 312, we'll be hearing innovative solutions to EHS staffing needs. And for the Play Hard section, we'll see the return of some old friends from the early days of the podcast. Hello and welcome to 312, the HRP Podcast. I'm here with Jackie Baxley.
Good morning, Tom.
And Joe O'Grady.
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
Doing well. So Jackie, in case anyone doesn't know, can you remind us your position here at HRP, kind of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jackie Baxley, I am the practice leader for our environmental health and safety compliance group here at HRP.
And Joe, the same?
Yeah, I'm Chief of On-Site Services.
Okay. And we are here today to discuss thinking outside the box to solve your EHS staffing needs. And the main thrust we're going to take on thinking outside the box is how HRP can be the solution to a lot of those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start with kind of the three key bullets, if you will, and then I'm sure as we can continue our conversation, we'll dive into each of those bullets in a little bit more detail. But HRP can solve the on-site EH&S staffing needs in various situations with various solutions that are very tailorable and very scalable to whatever the needs are. So we can be an immediate short-term assistance. We have assisted clients in situations where maybe somebody is going out on medical leave, or maybe they've lost a technical resource in-house through just natural attrition, and they need that immediate assistance, a bridge assistance, if you will, from the outgoing to the new person that is hired. The nice thing about that is once the new person is hired, we can actually help with some of that training and onboarding for that new person as well. And then so that would be the first element, if you will, providing that immediate short term. The second one that we see is sometimes there are companies that just are not quite big enough to require a full-time environmental or health and safety or environmental and health and safety specialist. So normally it's a hat that maybe somebody is wearing. Maybe it's a hat that several people are wearing. A lot of times we'll see human resources wear the health and safety hat. We'll sometimes see facilities wear the environmental hat. And so maybe sometimes just the issues are becoming a little bit more challenging. The time management is coming a little bit more challenging. Maybe the company is growing and they're finding that they're in that phase of transitioning from it being a hat to an actual role. And so we can help with that transition. So we can be there maybe 1 or 2 days a week. We can be there maybe a full week, a month. This is where it's very scalable to help develop the infrastructure, some of the management system elements to help you as you're transitioning it from a hat to a full-time role. And then the third thing I would say is at the corporate level. The first two, those are normally at a plant, an individual facility, a college campus, an industrial operation, whatever the case might be. Well, corporate level has the exact same challenges, whether it's because of a short-term immediate need because of a leave, whether it's because of a ramping up. Maybe there's been 2 or 3 facilities and all of a sudden there's 6 facilities and there's no corporate structure at the EH&S level to help identify and manage risk, to help share best practices. We can, again, kind of fill that role there. And this is something that we've always offered here at HRP. We just see with the changing workplace, the changing, job market right now, and the challenges that we're all seeing post-pandemic, still actually during the pandemic. That's why most recently we've elevated Joe to this new role that he has. I'm not sure if Tom's going to edit out of the final cut or joking around about what is Joe's title because it is a new role because we see that we need to have the dedicated infrastructure to be able to support our clients that have these needs out there. So Joe has this new chief role because Joe has lived in a plant for how many years?
Gosh, well over 20, almost 20-something, 22, 23 years straight, right?
Yeah, so Joe's been in the plant. Joe's been at the corporate level. Joe has lived these pains, and so, he is the perfect person to kind of help us, elevate where we can help folks with these challenges.
Yeah, Joe, can you speak a little bit more to your experience there and how you're suited to that role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, allude back to what Jackie was talking about, it's real interesting when you've been in both sides, right? So I kind of say it that way very kind of jokingly, but it's different when you've really experienced that industrial site facility type role, that you've seen the corporate side of how it affects, and then you come into the consultant side and you see how we affect everything. And when we're affecting stuff on the consultant side, it's a direct support back to everybody. So not only does the facility have hands-on people there with knowledge and a ton of experience and a real broad type of potential to help in any field that we're talking about, but it also helps support the corporate goals and the expansions. And when you're thinking about it and you just think about some of the needs, when I was on the facility side, it was kind of overwhelming sometimes because you had and that's kind of a weird thing to say, right? Because you're like, oh, okay, I have this one plant and I have these specific things I do and they're kind of the same. But when you start adding in air permit and wastewater, hazardous waste, and you start running teams, okay, I need a HAZWOPER team, I need a confined space rescue team, and all these other things start coming in. And then you sit back one day on a Friday afternoon, you go, it's 6 o'clock at night and I'm still sitting here because there's so many things I have to do. How do I work this? Well, that's where we can step in, right? And we say, hey, you know what? We have the expertise to be able to do all that I just mentioned and then some. We can also start looking at management systems for you, right? And that's kind of like that big key piece in my role, right? Would be to say, hey, do you even have a management type of system to help with these different avenues of expertise that you may need? Or support, because technically you really don't have enough personnel for many reasons, right? It could have been that short-term piece that Jackie was talking about. It could be the extended or the more in between. You're kind of on that cuff of whether or not you need a permanent person or not. And then, of course, on the corporate side, it's really awesome to be able to have that overarching support. And that's really what corporate should be focused on, right? To give everybody support, to be able to find resources, to be able to complete the activities that are needed.
And let's be honest, the role of an EH&S specialist is really changing.
Oh, big time.
When I started my career in the late 90s, I was over environmental, and that was it.
Yeah.
Sustainability was not really a thing back then. And now if you're wearing that environmental hat, all of a sudden that by default means you're wearing the sustainability hat. And maybe your customers are sending you these questionnaires, and you can spend almost the majority of your time just responding to customer and client questionnaires. What are you doing about energy? What are you doing about water? What's your ESG report? What's your greenhouse gas? What's
right.
your carbon footprint? And that's just on the environmental side. And then when you talk about the health and safety side, there's similar, just evolution of what the role is. So very rarely do you find an EH&S person anymore that is really just doing EH&S. They might be, responding to conflict mining reports and requests. They might be responding to, ensuring that you don't, support, any of your suppliers don't have child labor practices. It's just become, it's a different world.
Yeah.
And a lot of those global initiatives, a lot of those sustainability initiatives, a lot of those just, the social initiatives all seem to filter down to EH&S, which is why it's becoming more and more of a challenge of a dedicated EH&S person on site to fulfill sometimes the compliance obligations that come with it.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy part is people don't realize how many other things that are happening. It's like they think EH&S, they're like, okay, really, we don't have a lot of environmental, but we do have some safety, and this is the way they're thinking, right? And then they're like, well, isn't health the same? and so then they go, oh, yeah, that one person handles it, when in reality, that one person is wearing 3 hats within their own role. And then they have to try and figure things out and get the site support back too by having safety committees and all these other functions that are happening just to make the everyday go.
Makes me think of something I wanted to ask, which was if we're thinking about, maybe consider me as like role playing here, and I'll ask something maybe isn't plausible, but if the client or the facility is thinking, well, if it's just a short-term gap, maybe I can just get by without an EH&S person during that time. Is that something that someone in this position could actually?
Very plausible. That people think that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of companies out there that have tried to actually eliminate environmental health and safety and saying, hey, we can segregate this out amongst everybody, which can work, but if you don't have a solid management plan in place that defines every one of those aspects of that role, you're going to miss something. And the problem is on environmental health and safety, if you miss one thing, they're all interconnected in some way. So it may have a wave effect where several things get missed. And so my recommendation is always be very careful of that. In that short time, that's what we are. We're that absolute help to help bridge that gap to where you don't fall behind. Because depending on what time of the year it is, and all of a sudden you say, hey, we're not going to go without it, there could be several reports due, even those 300 logs that I talked about on a video, right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden that could be needed, and you're like, oh, yeah, but we can figure it out. Well, maybe, but best to be always err on the caution side.
And what I would interject there is not to be, Debbie Downer and the joy kill in the room, but I would love to say, yeah, short term, you're good.
Right.
The labor market that we're sitting in right now, at the moment that we're recording this, it's August the 17th when we're actually recording this. We are on a short-term on-site service assistance that we started in May. The client said, I can't see it being more than a month, maybe 2 months. I'm sure we'll have somebody in here by then. That was in May. It's in August. They have no candidates on the horizon. And thankfully we're in there and we're working with them. We're able to manage all of their needs, and it's been working out well. But the nice thing is that they got us in, even though thinking it was going to be short term, we were able to go ahead and get that resource in, get that infrastructure in, go ahead and identify what needs to be done at what frequency, putting into place the tools and the resources to get it done, whether it's us doing it or in some cases they've said, all right, we'll take this, you take that. If we hadn't been doing that since the very beginning, then not only right now would they be looking at not having somebody to do it, but all this stuff that's just piling up. And now you're setting up that new person either coming in or that person coming back from leave. You're setting them up for failure, essentially, for those first few weeks or few months as they're just trying to right the ship after it's just kind of gone off course for a while.
Yeah, and I can tell you, experience in my past, I've done that. And it's very difficult to walk in to a new organization. You're all excited, and then you're overwhelmed because there's so many things that were not completed. Mm-hmm. And it becomes very difficult. And the cool part that I love about, being able to fill that gap from a consultant side, from an HRP side, is that we are versatile. I can really attest to that from being in industry as long as I have been. I've had positions in my past where I've walked into that to that opportunity where, hey, they needed somebody because the person before me had to leave for whatever reason. And now all of a sudden there were so many things that were undone because they never bridged the gap, right? And it's really crazy when that gap isn't bridged. And all of a sudden you're the new person excited about this new position and job. And you come in and you're like, wow. 50-hour weeks is not enough, and you're really working hard to get everybody back into compliant and conformance, all right? So you want to make sure the site is doing what they say they're going to do, and then you got to still look at the regulatory, purposes behind everything. And that's where, us, HRP, it's amazing that we can come in and fill that short-term gap and still provide versatility that we can grow with you. So just like what Jackie was saying, can you imagine if that one company didn't do that and said, hey, you know what? We can make this work in the next month or two. We don't need nobody. And then 4 months later, they're still struggling to even find a candidate. Now they have 4 months of things that have not been being done. And that's where I think it makes me feel so good now to be on this side, to be able to see all the good and the benefits. It's something sometimes when you're in the industry side, you go, why do I need to do that? I think we can handle it because you're all experts and managers and you have knowledge. But at the end of the day, it's shuffling. You're almost starting a juggling act that you may not be able to juggle for very long.
And let's be honest, you need that EH&S person in there, not for what you can predict, but for what you can't predict.
That's right.
So, short term, make sure that you have, if you're sitting there like, okay, it's a short term, it's something that's very defined, like a 12-week maternity leave, very defined, what the time period is going to be. Just make sure before that individual goes out on leave that you've kind of gone through a what-if scenario. So what if we have a work-related injury or illness? Who's going to do that investigation? Who's going to do that record-keeping and reporting? What if we have an environmental discharge or release? Who's going to field that? Make sure it's just not the day-to-day stuff that gets covered, but it's those emergency situations as well, because that's really when you need to have something established and ready to mobilize in case of emergency. So, there very well are folks out there with the resources to bridge the gap themselves. I would just say make sure you go into it very intentionally with defined roles and responsibilities, going through what-if scenarios so that you've got your management system in place to bridge that gap internally.
Yeah, it's, things like predictive maintenance have been around for a long time. You need predictive EHS. That's those hazard risk assessments. That's those analyzing the near misses and, thinking that. And then right down to Jackie's point where someone had to leave for a purpose. And even if that was planned and short-term, you still want to make sure that if you're going to divvy it up, that everybody has the knowledge and the ability, especially on the emergency side, because that's where the EHS professional at that time is so valuable because they're responsive and quickly. Because a lot of, reporting you have to do almost immediately, depending on what it is. So you need to be able to follow through that task. And again, that's where we absolutely help. We're like great for that because you not only have the on-site resource. Let's say if I was the person on your site helping you out, you have the full HRP knowledge because at any point, even if I didn't know every single aspect, I can make a quick call and I got the answer for you. So, which is amazing. That is like the coolest thing. It's like having a library that at any point I can pick and the library's talking to me. It's fun,
So that takes us to the extended services that HRP offers. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit more about how what we do can fulfill a need that we see for clients that are maybe trying to ramp up or build a more robust program?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fun to see our clients grow. Companies that we've worked with, when we first started working with them, they had maybe 3 locations, and now they have 24 locations. And so the degree of infrastructure that a company in that growth mode needs is very different, now than it was, maybe 15, 20 years ago when we first started working with them. And so that's really exciting for any organization. And it's also really nerve-wracking for any organization as well. Yeah. So with that, ramping up, if you will, whether it's at a corporate level or whether it's at a plant level, it's recognizing that we're at a different phase right now where what we have been doing just isn't enough anymore, and we need additional assistance. And maybe you're just not there yet to where it needs to be a full-time, an additional full-time person, or even, a dedicated department. You're just at the in-between. And that's where it's very scalable. And I'm using that word a lot, I realize. But it is scalable. Yeah. We do these services for there are some companies where we are at their facility 1 week a quarter. There are some facilities where 1 day a week. There's some companies 2 days a week, 1 day a month. It's scalable and tailorable to what the need is. If the need is just environmental, we plug in environmental. If the need is just health and safety, we plug in on health and safety. There's some companies who have, because of process changes or growth, are now subject to process safety management, where previously they were not subject to process safety management. And that's just too much for maybe their health and safety department to take on. So we've provided that on-site support to be, a facilitator of their process safety management system. Because as Joe can attest to being one of our process safety management experts who also had to live it and breathe it in a plant system, there's a lot of roles and responsibilities, a lot of tasks.
That's right.
And a lot of things that you got to stay on top of. And so that's just, again, it's tailorable and it's scalable to whatever the specific need is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. That's the perfect thing, right? Is that we can come in there, and sometimes the site or the company may not even know that they need that extended services, right? And so that's where we may have been in there again at short term, or maybe they just called us up and say, hey, I'm not so sure what I need. And that's where we can counsel them to say, let's talk about what your need is. Maybe we come in and do an assessment, and we kind of help these types of processes come together for you. So now you can see where your gaps are, right? To be able to decide, do I really need someone to bridge a true gap now? Because I know, what we have on site is currently not enough, but I'm not so sure. Do I hire somebody full-time? Do I hire a second person? And that's where we can be a huge benefit. Because at that time, for the most part, most of the time, we're going to be at a lower rate than a full-time person in a year. Like Jackie had mentioned, if you wanted us just once a month, you're talking 12 times a year we're out there instead of every day. So, and that's a huge benefit, and kind of like a great point to say, wow, yeah, having an EHS counsel service is awesome.
How are we able to help the client understand when they do have a long-term need, and that what we're offering them is what they really need and not just an upsell on services?
Yeah.
A lot of times people will call us up and ask us to say, like, I need you to come in here and tell my management that I need a full-time EH&S person. And that
doesn't work.
That's not something that we can do. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is we can paint a picture.
Yeah.
And as Joe was alluding, we can come in and do an assessment. And through that assessment, we can identify these are your regulatory obligations. And this is what it means you need to do. And then we can help you identify what you currently have in place to meet those regulatory obligations. And where there's a gap, we can help you, put into place either the written programs, the training, the protocols you need. And then we can help assign, okay, who has that role or responsibility within your organization? And that's where
the key.
Yeah, that's where the picture starts to come into focus, where you start to see the number of obligations you have, the potential time commitment that's associated with each of those. And then as you start to say, okay, well, Fred over here is going to do this task, Jackie over here is going to do this task. And then you start to see, okay, maybe we're really starting to get to a level of commitment that we either need some part-time assistance, such as a company like HRP, or we need to start defining something a little bit more. And essentially what we're talking about is we're helping you build a management system, because a management system is a plan, do, check, act system where you plan what you're going to do, you do it, you check to make sure you're doing what you said you're going to do and it's working, and then you act as you identify issues of nonconformance and noncompliance. Well, a key part of that plan, do, check, act cycle is to having clearly defined and communicated roles and responsibilities. This is what Tom's doing. This is what Jackie's doing. This is what Joe's doing. And so as you start to, again, just paint that picture, it starts to become clear the degree of assistance you need. And to be perfectly clear, we're here to help.
Yeah.
I would like to say we're the type of company that's just, we're here to do what you need us to do. You know, if you want us to do more, we'll do more. If you want us to do less, we'll do less. Yep. We like to think of ourselves, yes, we're consultants. And yes, our fees come from hours that we provide. But really, at the end of the day, we like to think of ourselves as a partner. We succeed when you succeed. And so we do like to kind of feel like we're all in this together, as opposed to we're just somebody that's going to come in, dump some stuff on your desk, and then walk away. Right. That's never our goal.
Yeah, because that's sometimes a concern. That last piece is a concern from a lot of people in management and site people, because holy cows, I had a list, now I have a triple list. What do I do? And that's where we're taking care of that. We're helping to guide you where you need to go. And that's what helps everybody at the end of the day to make that correct decision of how they need to resource from that point on to be able to handle it. And I'll tell you, everywhere as I've ever worked in my life, when they have a good management system, it's a lot easier to be able to figure out what you have to do, because things every day do occur, right? You do have incidents, you do have, all kinds of stuff takes place. You have spot inspections where, EPA comes in and they say, hey, you know what? Even if it's not a major fine, they still give you a list. And all these lists start adding up. And to be able to provide that service, to be able to answer those questions, fill the gaps back in to where you're not missing something, is huge. It's such of a value-added process. And just as Jackie said, we can give that in a small amount or we can do a large amount depending on your need and your actual resources. But having that management system that, it's kind of like a gap assessment that now is really laying it out through a process, you're going to know that you're not only in conformance with your own company standards and policies, but that you're in, compliance and that your regulatory obligations are being met.
When we're thinking about the roles that HRP can take in short-term, long-term, extended services, how active or involved on site or in meetings is HRP? How much does that change depending on the particular circumstance?
It definitely changes based off of, how we've developed the scope of work that we're providing. And again, whatever it is that we agree to, it's going to be something that all parties agree to.
Yeah.
It's going to be HRP is here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or HRP is going to do X, Y, and Z, but not A, B, and C. We've got somebody else that's doing that. So it's really whatever it is that we agree to. But it is important to realize that there's some things that any outside party just can't do. So whether it's HRP or any other company, we are not an employee of your organization. I'm not going to be issuing purchase orders from your company to authorize certain things. I'm not going to be able to make decisions that only a manager of your organization can. We are going to collaborate with you every step of the way because we aren't, an employee of your organization. We're not a legal representative of your organization. And because of that, there are some things that we're just not going to be able to do because of that. But again, collaboration is what we're able to provide. And if for that degree of collaboration, you need us in that Monday morning management meeting, well, we'll be in that Monday morning management meeting.
Yeah.
But if our main point of contact is somebody else that's in that meeting, then we're just going to rely on that communication and that knowledge exchange with our main point of contact of what they need us to do as a result of that meeting. So again, scalable and tailorable. So it's just whatever you need us to do to help facilitate your operations. Just recognizing that we're not a legal representative of your organization. So there are some things that we just won't be able to do because of that.
That's right. Yeah, that's the cool part about everything, though, is that customized piece. So when you're sitting down and you're telling us, hey, this is all my needs, we're going to ask you 20 questions and then some to really tailor that, right? To get down to the real points you need. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, it has to be value added. The money that you're spending needs to be worth, the services being provided. And that's what we want. We're not trying to oversell. But while we're there, the cool part is you do have the wealth of knowledge of us. And so while we're in there, we can also point out and see other things that are good for you to know, especially if they're regulatory or compliant. These things have to happen. Conformity, yes, but it's not going to necessarily get you a fine, right, at the end of the day. But if it's compliance, you have to pay attention to it. So it's really cool to have that consultant again, even there, every so often, even if you didn't technically really need it, just to help have a new, fresh set of eyes that has the bandwidth and the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, and to be clear, HRP, we are not a temp service.
No.
We're not a staffing service. We're not a temp service. We are a professional service. And so we come into these types of agreements, with our customers, recognizing that we're providing a professional service to assist you, and as opposed to just, a body to do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We're there, truly to lend that professional level of assistance, to as I liked Joe's library analogy. We're the librarian when we're there. If you need assistance with mold, we pull that book off the shelf. If you need assistance with an industrial hygiene issue, maybe there's a noise issue, we pull that book off the shelf. If you've had a spill and, oh my gosh, now we've got to dig up the dirt and we've got to investigate, has the groundwater been impacted? We pull that book off the shelf. So I really like that analogy that Joe used earlier, and that's what a professional organization brings to you, in these services. Yeah,
and I can tell you, again, being on the other side, right, and being that person saying, wow, I have a lot of things that I have to take care of. I'm looking at my compliance calendar, and it's like, wow. By the way, too, we can help provide that compliance calendar, which is huge. Oh, my gosh, that's huge in itself. But when you're sitting there and you don't necessarily have the technical resources in-house, for many reasons, it's awesome to be able to ask, HRP to say, boy, I have no clue about this, ammonia process that I have going on here. What do I need to do? We're getting ready to embark on a new endeavor. How do we make it happen?
And to be perfectly clear, if Joe Cardinelli was, on this podcast right now, he'd throw something at me. But we succeed when you don't need us anymore.
True.
So while we're there, we're trying to give you the tools. We're trying to give you the resources to succeed without us. If you need us, we're here. Mm-hmm. But if we can help you, develop those compliance calendars, develop that training matrix, identify the roles and responsibilities that folks need to fill in. And if you need us, we're here. But if you got it, you got it. Just call us when you need us for something else. That's success. Mm-hmm. Again, that's why we look at being a partner. When you succeed, we succeed.
Yeah, just being there for you. We're a call away. Hey, I need a question answered. Okay, we got you.
Yeah, our CFO would probably want us there more often, but I'll look at it as success when you don't need us anymore.
Absolutely. Yep.
Jackie, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jackie. It was awesome.
See you soon. Like I'm on the phone. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
This episode of 312 is brought to you by PFAS Pulse, HRP subscription service for the latest on PFAS, no matter where you are. Coming up next on the Pulse is a special podcast episode with host Jackie Baxley, who is here with me today. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about what the podcast episode will be?
Right. This is going to be an exciting podcast where we have the opportunity to bring an alumna from HRP, Susan Schlangen, to the table. So Susan and I used to have the opportunity to work together at HRP, and now she's with WSC out in Portland, Oregon. Susan and I are going to have a conversation about the intersection of water reuse and the regulatory environment.
Great. Look forward to that. Catch it on the PFAS Pulse. Welcome to the Play Art section of the podcast, which is called 312. I'm Tom Simmons. I'm joined by
Joe Cardinale
and
Everett Anderson.
Welcome, guys. What's going on? What's everyone drinking?
I am drinking a Rec League from Harpoon, which is very light, but still a very tasty beer.
Everett?
I've got a double dry hopped hazy India Pale Ale called Mutagen, which has a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles look to it.
Oh, yeah, you showed me that.
So
from Ingenious Brewing Company.
I have to interrupt real quick. Huh? Are you a beer snob if you call it an Indian Pale Ale instead of just an IPA?
You mean India Pale Ale?
What did I say?
Indian Pale Ale.
Whatever. But still, you couldn't just say.
I mean,
IPA.
that's just the word you're saying, the longer version of what it is. That's like, are you a snob if you say Major League Baseball instead of MLB? Are you a baseball snob?
Yes. I'm a certified financial officer.
I feel like saying MLB is more snobby than saying Major League Baseball.
That's not even what it is. Certified financial officer?
Whatever. What are you drinking, Tom?
I'm drinking Robot Crush, an American Pilsner made by Aeronaut Brewing, which is in Somerville, which is right outside of Boston.
Did you buy this one, or did you bring this?
No, they're distributing in Connecticut now, which is really cool to see.
So you just bought this today?
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool can.
Definitely. They're a really good place. I always like to stop in there when I'm up there.
I went to the liquor store once while I was in Connecticut, and for the first time in 2 years, in May, was it? End of May? Something like that? July? Something like that? I don't know. And I couldn't believe how much more stuff there was just from COVID and stuff, people distributing and stuff like that. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, it's crazy how people have had to expand their distribution networks, stuff that I thought I would never see outside of Vermont. I can get, just down the street from where I live.
Totally.
So I recently canceled all of my subscription services. Netflix is gone.
Wait, we just said recently. We just talked about this like literally 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just did it like yesterday.
You have something in your mind. Boom.
Yeah. Netflix is gone. HBO Max is gone. No, Crunchyroll's gone. Mubi's gone.
What's Crunchyroll?
Crunchyroll's anime.
Oh.
Yeah. Mubi is foreign and indie films.
Ah. Huh.
So
I'm surprised you got rid of. HBO Max.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Isn't Dune coming out soon?
Yeah, I'll go see it in the theater.
That's a good point. Very good point.
That's my other. Will you go see movies in theaters? Because I'm ready to get back in the movie theater.
I've already been there multiple times.
Been there. What have you seen in theaters, Everett?
I saw Wonder Woman in December, and then I saw that Disney animated movie. Oh God, no! What's the one before that?
Oh, Soul.
No.
It's
oh
like
my God.
all of them.
What was it called? Raya and the Last Dragon.
Never heard of that.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
Was it?
And,
who was it with?
And then I saw Black Widow. Most recently.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah,
I'm happy watching movies from home. I actually really enjoy it.
But you have to wait longer, though.
Well, I mean, if that changes, until that changes. But right now with the Disney Plus and the HBO, it comes out the same day. But if that changes, then yeah, I'll probably switch that. But I enjoy it from home. I have a better TV. I have a better sound. Well, not sound yet. Better TV, anyways.
Do you really think your TV's better than a movie screen?
Oh yeah,
1,000%.
TVs are way better.
Way better.
Yeah, they are. Unless you're looking at an IMAX screen, the contrast, the contrast, and like the black
Resolution,
levels
everything's so
and
much
stuff
better.
like that is so much better on a TV. But
Tom, you need to come
going
to my
back
house and show
to
my TV.
going back to when you were talking about if they continue doing this, they're not. There's no way.
I don't see it either.
I know. I think Warner Brothers just announced that they're not going to. A lot of their bigger movies that are coming out after.
So basically this year, maybe a little
Basically
bit into
after
next
the
year.
Matrix. I think the Matrix is the last one that they're gonna do. And then I think Disney has gotten into a lot of trouble with contracts, so they're not gonna do it anymore.
So it's funny because I was listening to a podcast this morning, driving in with J.J. Abrams, and
He was in the car with you?
he was on the podcast in the car with me. Yes. And it's funny, it was actually a little bit of this topic of where movies either go on this big screen or streaming. And one of the topics were like movies that weren't really for big releases, like the mega hits and the blockbusters. He was bringing up like old movies like Tootsie and things like that.
Tootsie.
Yeah, that just won't have a appeal to a huge audience, so it's not going to make a lot of money in the theaters. Is it better to put in through streaming or through movie theaters? And his opinion was that he'd like to see everything go back to the theaters for the experience, for the gathering type of feel. But I mean, to me, it makes business sense to do it the streaming way. I mean, you're guaranteed some money, and marketing costs are a lot less with streaming. You know, somebody already has Netflix, so there's not much as marketing. So
I think there's too much built into movie deals with different studios where like they have to do something at AMC, or they have to release stuff. Universal has to release stuff at a certain theater or whatever, and then it just creates like I know when they first did this same day streaming thing, there was like huge lawsuits and stuff like that of breach of contract and stuff like there's so many things like with the actors being mad that they're not making enough money, and the directors acting like it's a basically you're just like making a film worthless by putting it on streaming, because it's the theater is so much more majestic and whatever. And I don't know. I just don't. I think that there might be more movies that go straight to streaming that are just like Netflix makes a movie or like stuff like that. But I don't think like these big,
Studios,
Warner Brothers,
yeah.
Disney. Like I don't know if they're going to continue to do that.
I mean, I'd like to see at least the window close a little faster between the theater and then streaming. That would be, I think, a good compromise for sure.
But then you're gonna eat away at your own profits at that point, because people are just going to wait.
Maybe there's an early access period. The theaters,
Yes.
then early access, and you still get that money.
So like there's so many things that like have come out, right? And they're like, you can watch it at home for $40. And if you just wait 2 months, you can get it for whatever you're already paying the subscription fee.
Yeah.
Like it seems a little, I don't know, silly, I guess.
Did they raise the price of Disney Plus? I thought they did, right? They raised it $1 or something.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Thought they did. Or maybe that was HBO Max. I'm not sure.
I don't enjoy movies as much when I watch them at home as I do when I watch them in the theater.
Yeah, I can
Why
see
is
that.
that?
I mean, I think it depends on what you have, like your setup,
not
right?
Well, your little 25-inch TV, I mean, yeah, it's not going to be.
It's not about the size, Joe. It's more about
not when it comes to TVs.
how dialed in you are to the experience in the movie and your level of concentration on what's going on in front of you.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, especially
Yeah.
for me, 3 kids running around and a wife and a dog and everything under the sun. But, I mean, when I will watch a movie like that, I go downstairs where I can close the door and get it dark, brand new LG OLED CX TV that Everett made me buy. and it's great.
But you're still in a position where nothing is demanding that you watch it. Whereas you go to the theater and you're kind of surrendering to like the experience of you have to be a participant.
Yeah, that's a good
watching
point.
this.
It's the only thing
That's a
there.
good
Like
point.
there's nothing else to do. Not that there's nothing else to do, but like that's why you're there. I guess.
And
is
the
what
only
I should
reason you're
say.
going to get up is if you really got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
You're watching it at a movie at home by yourself in your man cave.
Yeah. But if the doorbell rings,
Yeah.
I could pause it.
Yep.
And then move on.
Or just check your phone at any moment you want. Any moment that
I could
like
do that.
demands that like would require a little bit of patience. Just like I'll just get on the phone. You're in the theater. You're not gonna get your phone out. You're gonna let that scene play out. And
I do that.
Appreciate what it
I still
actually
look.
is.
I look at my phone.
I know, but that's why.
Depends on where I sit. I'm in more. In the
I think
back.
it'll be. I
the
think.
back.
I feel like there's movies that I have to go to see in theater, and I think that's just always how it'll be.
Yeah, Dune is one of those for me.
I mean, there's movies I want to see in the theater. I wouldn't mind seeing them in IMAX for sure. I can't experience that at home. Not even close.
Yeah.
Dune is, I think, to me, one of my most anticipated movies.
I think you're gonna hate it, honestly.
I don't know. I don't think so.
As someone who really likes Dune, I can't imagine you enjoying it.
If Tom's gonna
like
like
the
it,
other
then
one.
Joe's gonna hate it.
That is true. Odds are. What about the old one? Did
Do
you
you
like?
like Lord of the Rings?
I love Lord of the Rings.
Well, maybe you will like Dune.
Do you like Lord of the Dune?
Lord of the Dune. That's next. What do you feel about the first one, the old one?
It's not Dune to me.
Yeah, it's not.
That's nothing like what Dune is.
All right, so maybe then
Yeah.
maybe I won't like it. What about not the original one, but maybe they made another one in between?
I grew up on the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries.
So okay.
I love that.
I didn't really watch that one, so but was that one closer to the book?
Somewhat, but the book is so deliberately complicated. Like, in order to understand anything that's happening in the current events of Dune, you have to have, like, a history lesson that goes back 10,000 years in that universe.
Well, I don't have that time.
I know, and that's, like, your basic primer for just, like, why is anything the way that it is? You need to understand things that happened that far back. That's why I compare it to Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings has that mythology that stretches back as if it were like a real place. And in order to actually understand, like, Lord of the Rings benefits from having like a pretty clear journey that you can follow, even if you don't know any of the history of the world. But there's just no way to understand anything that's going on in Dune or why anything's important if you don't like have the.
I mean, I've seen
background.
Lord of the Rings hundreds of times, I would say, a lot. And I understand what you mean, because, I mean, I have Googled a lot of the stuff that I didn't understand to understand them. I'll probably do the same with Dune.
Yeah.
I'd say, to me, from an outsider that has absolutely no idea anything about Dune, zero, zilch, nada. I think it just looks visually stunning,
Pretty cool.
and that's why I'm interested in seeing it.
And that sounds
Because, like you said, looking at just watching the trailer, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know what anything is. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing.
I mean, I just know the basic premises. When I see the,
which is what?
well, the kid who's growing up in, and they basically lied to him his whole life, that he's one of those poor people, I guess. I don't know, what would you call the people who live on the planet already? The one with the blue eyes?
Absolutely nothing of this is anything.
No?
No.
I thought he
Joe's never
he
seen
grew up and
Dune.
he was one of those people.
He's the only Aaron son of a duke that runs one planet, and the emperor of this universe has told him he actually has to go run this other planet, which is like the wealthiest planet in the universe. It's also a desert world, like a barren place.
Where they mine spice.
Yes. What is the spice, Joe?
Why is it
It's
spicy?
the most important substance.
Is it really?
Everything in their universe is centered around it.
All right. Does it come out of the worms, or is it? I'm kidding.
It does three things that are very important.
See, this is all the stuff I'm going to Google.
It allows you to see into the future. It gives you like superhuman reflexes. It allows you to expand your brain to the point where you're basically a computer. And if you take enough of it, it will mutate you into this weird fish monster that can change the shape of space itself and allow ships to travel from one end of the
Holy
universe
moly.
to the other.
This is some spicy stuff.
Yes.
Okay, but
It's a spicy meatball.
So then who is the main character? I thought he was...
The main character is the son of the Duke.
Which is Timothy Chalamet.
It's Timothy
right?
Chalamet.
Yeah,
yeah.
but he hasn't... So, man, I really screwed this up because I thought...
I've seen the trailer once, and I feel like I knew most of that. So
I
that's
thought,
kind of
though, he
embarrassing,
wasn't,
Joe.
like, the actual son. He was adopted, and...
No, he is...
Why does he have such a connection to the people that are already on the planet?
Because he fits the description of a prophet who is going to liberate them
Oh,
from
that's what it
oppression.
is.
Yes.
Okay, yes, all right. It's not that he was... All right, that's what it was.
Yes. He is also the product of thousands of generations of selective breeding to create, like, the perfect person.
I knew that. Warrior, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. More specifically, in order to develop somebody who has the ability to see into the future to a specific time and place that no one else has been able to look at. It's
the
just an
future.
area of space and time.
But
that
they don't talk about... That's it.
They
that's
can't.
it.
No, they can't access it.
They don't know
People
what it
that have these
is.
abilities
That's why.
aren't able to see what's there.
Welcome to the 312 Dune podcast. Going back to streaming services, canceling streaming services. I like when I first got my first apartment, I was like, I'm never paying for cable because everyone always talks about cable sucks and you pay $300 for a bunch of channels you don't use. So I was like, never doing that. So I got YouTube TV like when they first started. I was like one of the early adopters with that, and it was like $30, like basic, maybe 75 channels. But you got all like sports, you got local sports. I was like, that's all I need. I'm fine with that. Now, fast forward, I feel like I have to basically, like, I feel like I'm missing out on so many things because all these streaming services are just popping up. It's like between Apple TV and Hulu and Netflix and HBO Max and like it, I just feel like they keep adding up, and now I'm probably paying as much as I would pay if I just had cable.
Yeah, but the difference is, though, if you had cable, you would still have Netflix. You would still have maybe Disney Plus. So you would still be paying that $300 then plus. So I don't think it's there yet. It's getting there. I know I just had cable and I just dropped out for YouTube TV and they gave me HBO Max as included. So until I think cable companies start doing that, they'll still keep losing people.
Yeah, my parents who have nothing for cable channels are still paying more than I did when I had all of the things I was subscribed to.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Did you have
it's
YouTube
such
TV?
I never had YouTube TV. I don't even know how much that would go for.
It's like 65, I think now, 70.
Yeah,
What,
it's
annually?
definitely gone up.
No, a month.
A month? For what?
Yeah,
It's
it's not
cable.
much. Locals.
They've added a lot of.
There's a lot of
channels.
channels, but I mean, again, it's basic cable. You're getting with YouTube TV basically.
The best part about it is it's not a contract. That's their biggest thing, is you can cancel anytime. It's like any other streaming service. Whereas if you are, cable, you get locked into these
2 years.
2-year deals. And then right after the 2-year deal, they're like, well, we're doubling the price.
Oh, yeah, that's how I canceled.
It's like, yeah, you were in the student area, so we gave you the student price the first time around. And they don't tell you that at all. And then if you're like, hey, I'm gonna cancel, they're like, wait, we'll move you back to the student price. How about that? And I
They
was
only
like,
did
this
that
is-
though one time for me, where they dropped it, really low again. Then the
Yeah.
next time it came up, they're like, this is as low as we can go, and it was still ridiculous. It was like
It's such a
$3.40.
scam. It's such a scam. And luckily, I don't have to worry about that for Wi-Fi because we have our internet is in our HOA fee, so we don't have to worry about the price going up or anything.
Oh, you don't
like
even pay
that,
for
which is
internet
nice.
over there?
Well, we do. It's just
Yeah, it's in the fee, though.
It's in our fee. Yeah, so I still
that's
pay. I still pay it, but it's basically the subdivision pays to have one single provider, and then if you go out of that, so then you'd be paying 2 internet fees. So it just doesn't make any sense to switch. But yeah, that's how I dealt with internet, because I was like, I'll just get internet, and then that's all I need when I was in Connecticut.
What'd you guys think of Suicide Squad?
Loved it.
Agreed.
Best one yet.
And he means it, folks.
That's right. No, I thought it was good. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the way it was filmed. Good comedy built in. You could definitely tell, James Gunn, the influence there. You could see it from the Marvel movies that he's done to this one. Mm-hmm. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I read somewhere that it was it was exactly as if a comic book was put into a movie. Like, it's exactly how you would read a comic book put into movie form. The way that the story was structured, the jumping back and forth, the excessive, violence and explosions and all that. I think it felt very exactly how that, I guess, material was intended to be presented.
Now, did you see it?
Yeah.
And what
Which
did you
I
think?
agreed
Watched it
with.
with Everett.
Oh, that's right. You guys had the watch party.
Yeah, you got what you paid for. It delivered on exactly what it said it was going to be.
I agree with that.
What
It
did
was,
you really think of it?
That is what I really thought of it.
It was entertaining. I had fun watching it. There was definitely some parts that I think were a little slow in comparison to the rest of the movie. Some parts that might have not needed to be in there at all.
Like
but
what?
It was
that's,
too long. It was
That's
definitely
it's
too
any
long.
movie.
I didn't think it was that long, though.
No, it
What
was
parts?
over 2 hours. There's no reason for that.
I'd say a lot of this stuff in the beginning with Idris Elba was just a little meh. Like,
It took
I don't
too
really.
long. It took way.
It took
Alright.
too long,
I
and
see
you
what you
didn't. You didn't.
that.
My favorite part about the beginning of the movie is that they accept the fact that you know exactly what's going down, and you're like, you don't care. You don't need to go through who these people are, and where they were before, and how they got chosen. It's just like, here's a team going in, and if they just did that with the other team, that would have been sufficient. I think you would have gotten the same amount the same thing out of the characters by the end of the movie if you didn't have that in there.
Didn't have what? The opening?
No, if you didn't have the more elaborate, I guess, scenes where they kind of showed how the team was getting constructed.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Harley Quinn's whole subplot was unnecessary, but then they wouldn't have really had anything to do with her for most of the movie.
Oh, I know what you're. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I see that too.
Yeah.
Every complaint I have about the movie, everything I think is wrong with it is stuff I already knew before I watched it. So I feel like by watching the movie, I don't really have any standing to complain about it. I knew exactly what I was going to get. I don't like that to start with, but I watched it, so do I really care? Doesn't seem like it.
How are we gonna have any future watch parties if you don't have HBO Max anymore?
If there's something that's worth watching, I'll just sign up for it again.
They have a trial period.
I'll probably just,
Use a different
New email.
yeah, just get a free, 1 month trial next time I want to watch
There
something.
you go.
But yeah, I thought it was good. I think it was. I don't want to say it was safe because I don't think that type of movie is safe in terms of.
I don't know, man. I don't know how it's not safe.
But it's. I mean, because it's a. I don't know. I think anytime you do a rated R movie, I don't think it's safe.
What are you talking about? I completely disagree with that.
I think in that genre, it's not safe to do a rated R movie because of your audience.
Nah, I disagree.
Why do you disagree?
I think there's a built-in audience for that. I don't think the rating for it matters.
But I'm saying, like, if you're, if a lot of the people that are going to see it are at a certain age, you're wiping that out from a genre that is based in family movies at some point, pretty much.
I don't know. I think the evidence is coming forth that the MPAA ratings are not as important as people convinced themselves they were. That they
But
don't
I'm not saying,
have a market impact the way that.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you're physically limiting by age, making this. You're restricting it by having it rated R.
Yeah, but I don't think that actually is an impedance to the primary audience from seeing it, despite them being not of the correct age to see it.
I mean,
I think kids still go see it. They still get in. They still go see it.
My kid's not seeing it.
I just don't think you.
watch
I
a
don't.
PG-13
I don't
movie.
think you can
Kid's
physically
not,
have
he's 10
a.
years old.
I know, but I'd let him go. I'd take him to a PG-13 movie.
I'm talking about kids that are like 12 to 14.
I still wouldn't let my 12-year-old go to an R-rated movie.
Would you let them go hang out with their friends unsupervised?
Yes.
They'll go see the movie.
How are they going to get there, Tom?
Someone will drive them. They'll go to a friend who lives there. Like, this is like classic kid stuff. This is what kids do.
I mean, I never got into an R-rated movie. When I
neither did I.
Did you
old
try?
enough. Yes.
Not hard enough.
I've gotten ID'd as an adult.
Well, I could see that.
You're from a different era, though.
I was built different.
Yes, you were built to.
I'm not that much older than you, and I had no problems getting into any movie I wanted to see when I was a kid.
Who took you to these movies?
Nobody took me. I just went to go see them with my friends.
I never went to these movies.
Well,
not at 12 to 14.
Who took you to these
maybe
movies?
Later. But not
Joe sounds like his grandmother right now.
Joe, you grew up in like Stranger Things era. You go to the arcade and you walk over to the movie theater and you sneak into the R-rated
They won't
movie.
let us in. They wouldn't let us in.
You just wait till someone comes out the side door and then you just go in and sit down.
No, that
and you
did
don't
happen,
pay.
but not between 12 and 14. But that
Joe
did
didn't-
happen.
That's what those kids do.
I mean, Joe never had the height.
Yeah, fooled them. I couldn't fool
Well, he's the
them. Get out of here, you little 4-year-old.
he's the bottom half in the long coat. He's the base.
Oh my god.
Why didn't we do that? That would have been perfect.
I'm never gonna get that image out of my head.
Guy walks in. He's 7 feet tall, but you can still see his knees under the bottom of the coat.
The longest torso ever.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it. Everett, Joe, thanks for joining us on this episode of 312 for this Play Hard section. I'll see you guys later.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. 312 is a production of HRP Associates, produced, recorded, and edited by me, Tom Simmons, with technical assistance from Everett Anderson. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Check out our YouTube channel as well, or reach out to us through hrpassociates.com to learn more about any of the services we talked about today. Stay safe, everyone. Until next time.